Welcome to the Collaborative. I'm your host, Sydnee Walker. Today we are joined by Cassie Calvert. Cassie is a social media coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. She is responsible for operating the team's social media accounts, along with writing weekly stories and conducting interviews. She is a graduate of Duke University and previously worked with the New Orleans Pelicans. So welcome, I'm glad you could join us.
Thanks for having me, I'm excited.
So first we have Sid's This or That. First up, Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Ooh, Starbucks.
I agree, I love Starbucks. Cameron Indoor or Wallace Wade?
Oh, that's hard. I gotta go Cameron, I think.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
And lastly, West Union or the Chapel?
Chapel.
So you graduated from Duke, which is one of the best academic schools in the country. And I read that you originally majored in evolutionary anthropology and planned on going to med school. How did you discover journalism?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I kind of stumbled into it. I had to take a seminar credit my freshman year, and I signed up for this class. It's called TV journalism, and I really, really liked it. We would kind of produce our own features during the course, and my professor was a local sports producer. And so he was actually doing an interview with Coach K one evening. He asked if any students wanted to come along, and I was like, heck yeah, I'll be there. And being in a room with Coach K, especially as a Duke student, I was like, absolutely. So I went with him, and it was actually in Cameron, and I was walking into the stadium, and I happened to this guy happened to hold the door for me, and so we started chatting. He was going to the same place I was, and he ended up being the producer of Coach Cutcliffe's football show. He's our football coach at Duke, and so he would do a weekly TV show on local, their local ABC affiliate, and they would also air on the Duke Athletics website. And he was like, well, this is something that you're interested in. We use a student as a feature reporter each year, so stay in touch, and we'll see if they can work something out for next fall. And I was like, that would be really cool. And I didn't really think I would get it. They never used I was going to be a sophomore that fall. They only ever used seniors, and just ended up interviewing for that and ended up getting that position without really any experience. And so I did that my following 3 years at Duke, and I just really loved it. I each week would produce a feature piece about 1 week would be the quarterbacks, or 2 local players and their moms, just different stuff every week. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was my first time experience doing something like that. And for me, I knew if I had gone to med school, I knew I wanted to be in sports. And I think I'd kind of thought that sports medicine was the only real way to go about that. And that really opened my eyes, oh, there's kind of other possibilities here, and this is something that I really enjoy. And so after that, I just started doing different kinds of internships to see what exactly I was interested in doing. And part of it, it was kind of too late to change my major, and Duke doesn't really have a journalism or communications type major. They have this thing called a certificate program, which is kind of in between a major and a minor, and it requires an internship. And so some of my internships were able to count for course credit for that. And so I did a journalism certificate program instead of doing a major or something like that. And that was great for me because I was able to get a lot more outside the classroom experience, which as you know, a lot of that is what you need. You can learn about something in the classroom all the time, but then maybe not necessarily carry over. And for me, I learned some valuable stuff from my medicine type classes. I took a lot of anatomy, and so for me it was kind of interesting. Okay, now that I'm actually working in sports, if there's a major injury, I probably have a better understanding of it than the average person, just because that's what I studied in school. So I hope that I'm using a little bit of it, that it wasn't a complete waste, but it was something that was interesting to me too, so I didn't really want to give it up. And I was like, well, if journalism doesn't work out, I can always, go back and take the MCAT and go to med school because I have the credits. So obviously I haven't done that, but haven't needed to, thankfully. So yeah, it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I've kind of took a weirder path than most, I feel like.
And social media is becoming more popular, especially as we see different platforms merging, such as TikTok in the past year. What specifically interests you about social media?
Sure. Yeah. I think when I was in college, my current position literally didn't even exist. And so for me, it was something I kind of fell into. When I was graduating, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And a lot of what journalism jobs, like you start in a really small market and kind of like obscure town. And so I was looking at newspaper jobs that were like in the middle of Ohio, and I was like, do I really want to like go that route? I'm not sure. Obviously it works really well for a lot of people. I just didn't know that I wanted to do that. And I had actually done, when I was in college, I interned for a summer, ironically, up here at the Wizards and the Mystics, Washington teams for a summer. And they had just kind of I was an intern for the Wizards social media and like digital media team. And they had just taken over the Mystics, and the summer is the Mystics season. And so they were like, we're super understaffed. We need someone to go tweet Mystics games. Like, here's their Twitter account. Like, just go do it. I was like, okay, never really like run a Twitter account before. But so it's just like, they needed someone to do it, and I really liked it. And so I like did a lot of games that summer. I would still kind of do some like writing and stuff like that. But I was like, this is kind of fun, like live tweeting the game. And I kind of figured it out as I went, like what worked, what didn't. And so when I was graduating the following year, there was a position open with the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans that was a year-long social media internship. And I was like, this would be really cool. I'll get experience in NFL and the NBA like at one time. And there's a lot of entry-level jobs in both those leagues. Are internships full-time, but you know, like still like technically you're an intern. So I ended up applying for that, and I got hired on to focus primarily on Pelicans, but I still did some stuff in the Saints as well. And I just really loved that. I got to, like I said, I got to do both leagues in 1 year. So for me, I felt like I was getting double the experience in like 1 year out of college. And they hired me to do like solely social. But just because of my background, I was able to I started like a segment there where we would do Facebook Live interviews with Pelicans players every game day right after shoot around. So it's kind of like a lighthearted way to get to know the players like off the court. And then I would also do like, at the time they were doing a combined Saints and Pelicans podcast, and it would run every day, Monday to Friday. And it was just a lot on their radio voice and their radio producer. So they were like, Cassie, you can do Fridays. And so I, alongside with a former Pelicans cheerleader, we took over Fridays, and I would help produce those and like obviously serve as the host. So it was just, for me, it was great. It was a lot of experience in a year. And then when I wrapped that up, I ended up taking a full-time job with the Ravens, which again, I was hired strictly for social, but just because of my background, I've been able to do a couple other things as well, which has been really fun for me. But to more answer your question, I think the best part about social for me is it's really the one-on-one conduit with a fan. Like I, in my job, get to interact with millions of fans like every day. And most of the people in our organization don't directly get to touch those people every day. You know, like game day staff works with people one-on-one, face-to-face at games, obviously, but I get to be the one, like whatever is happening in an organization, like I get to tell these people, and I get to respond to them and like make their day. People think it's so cool, and like the Ravens Twitter account responds to them. It's like, that's something that just like gives me a lot of joy, like to be able to create those moments for people. And I think like it's just, you get to be the voice of the fan, which with it comes a lot of pressure, obviously, because there's very little room for mistakes, but it's also like a really cool responsibility.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique experience. And you mentioned the work that you had in the NBA. What do you see differently engagement-wise in the NBA as opposed to the NFL?
Sure, the leagues are very different. So like I said, I was primarily Pelicans for the year. I think the NFL is just known to be a little more conservative of an organization, or league. So when you're in a social media role, you just really have to know your organization. Even in the NFL, there's teams, like you look at the Panthers, they're able to do a lot of more like snarkier, kind of like them and the Falcons will go back and forth, like use that rivalry on Twitter. Our organization is a little more conservative, and that's just not something that our ownership is like interested in us taking part in. We kind of want to operate above the fray. We're a 2-time Super Bowl winning organization. It's kind of one of those act like you've been there kind of things for us. It's like we want to be respectful of all of our opponents, all of our other players, things like that. And so it's just knowing the tone your organization wants to take is huge. And I think the NBA and NFL differences are big on that kind of respect. You see a lot more of that from NBA teams. We also just have different like rights that affect both leagues. So you'll see NBA has like a lot less restrictions on like what highlights they can use on social. And that big part of that is they're still trying to drive TV like viewership based on like, okay, I saw this like sick dunk on Twitter, like let me go put the game on. whereas the NFL, like, it's more of a second screen experience. And so due to our TV rights, we just have the ability to use less highlights on like our social media platforms. That's changed a lot, even in the past couple of years that I've been in the league, which is great because they do kind of recognize that you can drive interest to games through social. But that's still kind of evolving, where I think the NBA was a little quicker to jump on like the social media highlights bandwagon.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. It's neat to hear about the different strategies. So the Ravens had an outstanding season last year, and there was hype around Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram, given their viral post-game interviews. Did your content strategy change as you saw more people engaging on each platform throughout the season?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that like we've had to learn is to just really take advantage of those moments. We are obviously blessed with guys who are like, Mark loves to say, like, they want the content, like, I'm gonna give it to them. And so like, it's great for my job. Honestly, he's made my job a dream the past year that he's been with the team. Like, I can just put a camera on him and I know it's gonna be gold. I don't have to do anything. Like, he just comes right up to you and like gives you like perfect nuggets for social. He's just like, he has that quick mind, and he's like that all the time, whether like cameras are on or not. So for us, it's been really like embracing our players' personalities. They have, like I said, made that really easy. And I think in the past, like, we would kind of press conferences lived on Facebook and Twitter, and they were just kind of like, okay, like, here's X's and O's of what happened in the game. But when you have these really unique moments, we learned, like, okay, we're going to take this like 8-second clip of Mark introducing Lamar as he walks to the podium and post it everywhere, and that kind of blows up. Whereas if you just have like a kind of standard press conference, we're not going to put that on Instagram. It's not really like our Instagram audience. And so I think you kind of learn that as you go, like, okay, what resonates with people and what doesn't. And when you have personalities, like, that's the stuff that people love. Like, even an example, during this like coronavirus pandemic that we've been in, we've done a lot of Zoom press conferences. And we had a moment with Mark Ingram where he was just doing a media availability. It was all football related content, nothing like super funny or lighthearted, just kind of talking about how he was like going about everything. But his little daughter ran in the back of his Zoom. And so he had like a cute little moment with her. And so we cropped that out of the video and like posted that on all our channels, just like kind of embracing those moments that make our players so personable. And you see like kind of the helmet off type content. And that's like stuff that our fans love. They want to, I think that's a hard thing about the NFL versus the NBA too, is you see a lot more personality from NBA players because they're not wearing a helmet all the time. And there's a lot more face recognition when there's less of them, and they just like, you see their face all the time. It's a lot easier to kind of develop those brands and personalities. And so in the NFL, you have like a little more responsibility to do that in a more like mindful way, because there's 90 guys on a roster during training camp, and like they all have their helmets on. And so it's hard to kind of evoke that emotional connection during a game. And so we try to do that as much as we can, when we're not during games.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed keeping up with the account. So thank you for that great content.
I got to thank them, honestly. It's all of them. They make my job so easy.
On the opposite side, can you walk us through a difficult situation that you had to handle through social media, whether it was regarding a player or the team?
Sure. I think, like, again, like I said before, in social, you are that conduit to the fan. You're also the conduit to the media. And so, like I said, everything that we do kind of has to have thought put into it, which is hard in a like, kind of social media atmosphere where everything's so quick. But the way that we kind of go about things in general is it's a big dialogue between like our upper leadership, our public relations team, and then us, our like digital media social team. And so our public relations team is honestly really the one that goes about like crafting kind of our organizational stance on things. So you'll take all the like stuff that's happening in our country right now, and that's something that as an organization we all want to make sure we're on the same page with, that we're putting out the proper messaging. And so I was really proud this week that our owner actually donated $1 million along with the Ravens organization and our players to social justice causes is right here in Baltimore. And it's one of those things, like, it's not something that he's just done this week. It's obviously there's a lot more eyes on what we do this week, but it's something that I've been really proud of in my time here. And it's been a really conscious decision by the organization. And it's our players have been involved, our PR staff has been involved, our upper leadership has been involved. And I think that just kind of being aware of those things and coming together as an organization and then presenting it is really important. But yeah, I think that I honestly will give all credit to our PR team. They're the ones that are kind of tasked with handling anything that happens to the player or anything that we want to take a stand on as an organization, and we kind of follow their lead on that.
Right. I know you mentioned a little bit earlier, but what does a typical game day look like for you? What are you doing the morning of and kind of the hours leading up to it?
Sure. Yeah. If it's like a noon kick, I'm usually at the stadium 1 p.m. I'm usually at the stadium by like 8 or 9. And I like to get there early, kind of. Usually I'll do like a couple clips of the stadium when it's empty. Like people love that. Like getting you hyped for game day kind of stuff. It's actually terrifying. Like in our stadium, if I climb all the way to the top, I've been there 3 seasons now, and I still like I'm a little shaky when I get to the top of the stadium because it's like you can see right over all the way down to the pavement. But I like to do that, kind of get the feel of the stadium on game day. And then a big part of my job pregame is player arrivals, and our guys all want to have their pictures of their game day fits, and so we'll post those on our platforms as well. But then even like we're taking hundreds more that don't ever see our platforms, because that's something that's really important to us to provide to guys for their own accounts. A big part of my job is like, I think that it's important that I ask a lot of our players to do for us. And so like a big thing in my job is to give stuff back to them. And so we're creating all this content that's not always going to see like the light of day on our social channels. And so I provide that to them, where it's game day photos or arrival photos, that kind of stuff. And they really appreciate it. And it's definitely helped me develop relationships with guys on our team, just that it's not always a give, you know, it's a little give and take as well. And like, I get it. Everyone wants their own like Instagram pictures, like that's fine. And so then a little bit before the game actually starts, once guys are out in the field, I'm usually on the field pregame, just capturing content from warm-ups. So we'll do like we have a sponsored live stream on Facebook pregame every game. That's just kind of like getting a feel for the game. I'll walk in between guys, and the players will come into the camera, stuff like that. And then during the game, I'm usually in the press box. My boss and I kind of split game day responsibilities. So like depending on if it's away game or home game, we kind of divvy up, like one of us is always there. Both of us are at home games, but one of us travels for away. We switch off. So we kind of just base like who's tweeting, who's Instagramming, who's Facebook, who's cutting highlights based on, you know, whatever that day entails. And then post game, back on the field, just capturing like if it's a victory. If it's a loss, I usually stay in the press box. No one wants to see me after a loss, which thankfully this year we didn't have that many, so I was down the field quite a lot. And capturing, you know, like post game content. And then if it's an away game and I'm there, like when we win, I'll do like a post game like walk off interview with one of our whoever had like the, you know, the key moments of the game. And then we'll have press conference with Coach Harbaugh and a couple players after the game. And so we're streaming that on Facebook, and then that goes on YouTube as well. And then I'm live cutting it for Twitter, just kind of cutting out, you know, like key clips like we talked about before. And then usually at the stadium for a few hours after the game, kind of publishing out all of our like written content, any like highlight packages that we have, using like cool photos from the game that maybe didn't make it up on Instagram during the game, and editing those. So yeah, it's usually quite a full day, to answer your question. Like that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And there's definitely so many perks that come with the job. What has been your favorite experience so far?
Oh, I always have the same one for this question. Like I said, I think that the cool thing about my job is I get to be places that like the fan doesn't get to be, and I get to like take a moment that maybe only like 3 people would have seen and share it like millions of people. And the best like example I have of that is there's 2 actually. My first year and then the past 2 years in the off season, both Ray Lewis and Ed Reed have found out they were going into the Hall of Fame, and they're obviously 2 of our like marquee players for the Ravens. But the way that they find out is Super Bowl weekend each year. They put all the finalists in one hotel, and the meeting actually takes place in the same hotel, where they determine like, all right, which of the finalists are going into the Hall of Fame. And so once they made that consideration, the president of the Hall of Fame, David Baker, goes to the rooms of the finalists who are being selected for the Hall of Fame and tells them like, you're going to be a Hall of Famer. It's obviously like a really intimate personal moment that like not many people ever get to see. It's usually like, for Ed Reed's example, it was Ed Reed, his son, his parents, and then me and a camera guy in there. And so it's obviously like a very intimate moment of like his family, and we get to be there and be a part of it and witness like this life-changing moment where he finds out he's going to the Hall of Fame, like all his work is culminated in that. And like I get chills just like thinking about it. So those two moments were like really, really special because it's literally being in a room that like no other reason I would ever be in that room, and most like no one else in the world really. And then we get to share that moment with like all of their fans, and so like they get to feel like they're a part of that, which is just like really special to me.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing to be there and capture that. Lastly, what advice do you have for students who are pursuing a journalism degree or those who have graduated and are interested in social media but don't quite know where to start?
Sure. Yeah. I think the biggest thing, and this is what I've learned in my career, is just really saying yes to opportunities. Like, even if they're a little outside your comfort zone, like, for example, like it's just what I've done and like what has benefited me. Like when I took that position with like the football show in college, like I didn't really necessarily have the proper experience, but I learned really quickly. And that like obviously is a credit to people that I've worked for, that they trusted me to do that. But I think like putting yourself in those positions and like learning is like huge whenever you can, and just being as versatile as possible. Like the more skills that you have, the more opportunities you'll have. And that's, like I said, like for my job, like both positions that I've had since college, I was hired only to do social media, but because of the other skill sets that I've had, I've been able to build more of a role for myself, which is really important. And I think like you don't want to get stuck in one thing, because I don't know if I want to be like running a Twitter account for an NFL team forever, but like I'm developing these other skills as well to help me kind of find other jobs like later on or whatever that may entail. So I think just like to sum it up, really being versatile and open to opportunities, even if they're like a little stretching for you. Obviously, like you don't want to say you have experience doing something that you don't actually have, but being open to opportunities and pushing yourself, even if it's a little out of your comfort zone, it just like helps you grow and makes you a more valuable employee, which is really important at the end of the day, because you want to be able to speak to your own worth.
Thank you for your time today, Cassie. I appreciate it. I learned so much.
Thank you guys for having me. And you seriously like awesome questions. That was awesome.
Best of luck with your future endeavors as you prepare for the upcoming season. Enjoy your time with your family and friends.
Thank you so much.